Hello everyone. So today we are gonna finalize the fat soluble vitamins. We are gonna talk about vitamin E and vitamin K, and we also start the water soluble vitamins. In particular, we are gonna talk also about vitamin C. But vitamin E, it's a group of molecules and basically divided into two groups called alpha tocopherol and alpha tocotrienol. So they're very similar. The difference is that when you look at the tail here, so you have on the left side here we have the rings, or what it's called chromanol ring. These two rings kept together, and you can see here that there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 carbons that make up this chromanol ring, and then we have a tail. So the tail in the alpha tocopherol molecules, they are saturated. There is no double bonds in this tail. Now, if you look at the alpha tocotrienol, they're very similar again. Both have they also have the chromanol ring, as here in the left again. But if you look at the tail, now you have some double bonds, so it's unsaturated or polyunsaturated, in fact, because this tail here has three double bonds making up the structure. So the difference basically is in the tail. Now, both the tocopherol and the tocotrienol, they can be subdivided, or there are three different variants of each of them, depending on if they have on carbon 5, 7, and 8. So you have this methyl here, methyl here, methyl here, same thing here, here, and here. So carbon 5, 7, and 8. You can have a methyl group, or you can have a hydrogen. So that's what makes them that's what confers them the different groups of molecules. They have everything the same, except that in carbon 5, for instance, you could have a hydrogen. You could also have a hydrogen substitute in the methyl group in carbon 7, and the same in carbon 8. So that's why you have the alpha, beta, gamma, and theta isoforms of these molecules. So, but these two are again hydrophobic molecules, and that's why they are fat soluble, and they differ basically on the way they're on this. If it's a saturated tail for alpha tocopherol, and if it's an unsaturated tail, makes it tocotrienol. So these are the two basic groups of molecules that make up the vitamin E group. So what are the main functions of vitamin E? So tocopherols, they are good quenchers of free radicals. So they serve as antioxidants. Normally vitamin E is referred to as an antioxidant. And what it does is that it stabilizes the polyunsaturated lipids and minimizes lipid peroxidation damage, and also the deterioration that may occur in cellular membranes. And this is typical. You see this kind of deterioration in aging, atherosclerosis, ethanol-induced liver injury, and also oxygen toxicity. In other words, what vitamin E does is that because it's a fat-soluble molecule, it localizes itself within the membrane of cells, which is a lipid bilayer. So because it's it's an antioxidant that is soluble in fat, it localizes within the membrane and protects the membrane against the attack of free radicals. And normally you see this as, again, as we say, as it says here, you see a deterioration of the cell membrane in cells as we age, or in people who have atherosclerosis, or if people who are heavy drinkers, and also when there is too much or an excess exposure to oxygen, as the name says, it oxidizes, it creates these free radicals that attacks the membrane. So vitamin E provides that protective effect because it's soluble in fat and localized within the bilayer, the lipid bilayer of the membrane. It makes up the membrane and protects it against free radicals. So the recommendation of vitamin E is the recommended daily allowance for men and women is approximately 15 milligrams per day, and there is an upper limit of 1,000 milligrams per day. So what are the dietary sources? So usually seeds, especially sunflower seeds, wheat germ, almonds, vegetable oils, and whole grain cereals. Now you can also get it from animal products, because here we only list plant products, but you can also get it from animal products, because when you eat meat, for instance, you have within the membrane of cells, you also have vitamin E present in there. But the main source, normally the ones that you get, the more common ones are the ones listed here. So what are the symptoms of deficiency? They are rare, because as a fat-soluble vitamin, they are usually stored in the adipose tissue or in the fat compartments of the body. So they're normally linked to malabsorption. And this, when I say malabsorption, I mean malabsorption in the gut, because you don't process properly the fat that comes with the diet. So this is usually due to pancreatic lipase deficiency, hepatobiliary diseases that block the release of bile, for instance, as gallstones. And also there are genetic defects in lipoprotein metabolism. And what it causes is that there is a genetic defect that those apolipoproteins that are usually located on the lipoproteins, they are missing, or they're modified. They are not properly assembled. And for that reason, it doesn't carry properly vitamin E, which is a fat-soluble vitamin, because they get into your circulation, and they enter your body along with the lipids, and they come into lipoproteins. So these are rare, but in case it happens, some of the effects are skeletal muscle pain, weaknesses, hemolytic anemia, degenerative neurological problems, and loss of coordination of limbs. And then you can see here most of the symptoms of deficiency, they're caused by excess or the lack of vitamin E that doesn't protect the cell membrane, and so that there is damage to cell membranes, and that can lead to these symptoms that you see here. It can be in a cell membrane of a muscle, can be in a red blood cell, can be in a neuron, and this obviously affects many different functions in your body, because if the cell membrane is degraded or is damaged, then whatever organ that happens, it will obviously have consequences to the function of those organs. So, and these are the ones that usually manifest in conditions where people have symptoms of deficiency. But again, it's rare, because people normally have a regular supply of vitamin E in different foods they eat. It's more likely to be seen in those people who have malabsorption problems or some genetic deficiencies or defects that impair lipoprotein metabolism. Toxicity, the opposite. So you also may, because the problem with vitamin E is that when you have too little, you are predisposed to free radical damage. But if you have too much vitamin E, it becomes a pro-oxidant instead of working as an antioxidant. And in that case, it also causes damage to tissues, especially membranes. So you can also, the symptoms are usually hemolytic anemia. So it's a breakage of red blood cells. You also have impairment of nerve function, muscle and immune function. So they are all affected because, again, it becomes a pro-oxidant. But again, very rarely occurs, because it's not commonly seen, and we don't normally hear, or we don't have reports or frequent reports of people having too much. Toxicity would probably occur if you were to take a supplement in large amounts that could lead to an excessive accumulation. But again, it's not a common or something that we really worry about, because there is not much, it's not common to occur, very rare. So the next one, and the last one in the family of fat-soluble vitamins, is vitamin K. So what are the biologically active forms of vitamin K? So we have two that are naturally occurring, or that occur naturally, and this is what we call phyloquinone, or vitamin K1, you see here on the left. And the other one is menaquinone 7, or MK7. And you have a synthetic version of it, which is called menadione. And this synthetic is mostly added to foods, especially animal feeding, when they do prepare an animal food. And they add vitamin K. So this is the synthetic version. Menadione is the synthetic version that is usually included in foods, but mostly in animal feed. So what are the main functions of vitamin K? So basically vitamin K acts in two fronts here, and this diagram kind of puts them all together. So what we have here on top, here on the left upper corner here, we have the red blood cell in red, obviously, and with a pink purple ring around it. And then we have a losange, which is gray and orange on the outside here. So it's called a platelet. So if you look here, this is a cross section of a blood vessel. So imagine if you were to cut a blood vessel in a cross section and look at inside. So that's what you would see. You would see the membrane, and then you have the lumen, where the blood and all the constituents of the blood circulate. So here you have many things. I just put here two of them that are important for this particular vitamin, which is red blood cells and platelets. So now let's imagine that you have an injury or a wound on a blood vessel. So you break the membrane, or you break the structure. So obviously what happens is that if you have an opening of the vessel here, breakage of the structure, there will be bleeding. So you're going to actually blood, or the content of blood will actually come out. So bleeding will occur, or hemorrhage will occur. So, but obviously your body has means to contain or to limit the bleeding, because otherwise you could bleed to death, depending on the caliber of the vessel that you break and the severity of the injury too. So turns out that your body has means to actually repair, or at least contain, the bleeding. And it does so by a process called coagulation, or blood clotting. So blood clotting means that you're going to actually form a barrier, or you're going to kind of put a plug in that area that there is an injury. And you see here, this is demonstrated by the accumulation, or by the aggregation of platelets. So they all come together. There are also proteins in your blood that form like a net, where this platelets actually aggregate and form a plug and kind of block the blood, or prevent blood from coming out of the vessel. So obviously, again, depending on the caliber of the vessel and the extension of the damage, this can be quickly and can be very effectively activated to prevent bleeding. But when it's a big damage in a big vessel, it becomes a lot more difficult for this process to contain bleeding. But most of the time, in injuries that we have, small injuries or cuts that we have in our skin or in our body, it can be contained through blood clotting. So how does this happen? How is this process triggered? So, well, when there is damage, there is the release of specific factors around that damaged area, activate what is present in the blood. In this particular case, you have vitamin K. So vitamin K circulating, present in the circulation, what it does, it activates a cascade of events that forms the blood clot. So vitamin K is crucial to prevent a bleeding from not stopping. So you have the capacity to stop the bleeding, because vitamin K is an important activator of the entire cascade of events that lead to formation of this blood clot. And the other side of vitamin K is that it also serves to activate, and we are going to discuss next what is specifically this activation process. So the other thing that vitamin K does is that it activates or transforms the inactive form of a protein called osteocalcin. Osteocalcin is very abundant in your blood, but it's in an inactive form. In order for you to make it active, or for your body to make it active, you need vitamin K. So vitamin K, again, converts the inactive form into the active form of osteocalcin. And what is it that osteocalcin does? It promotes mineralization and maturation of bones. So again, there are two main functions for vitamin K. Important for blood clotting, and it's also important for mineralization and maturation of bones. So it's crucial for growth and development and maintenance of normal function of your bones. So these are the two main functions that vitamin K has in your system. So it serves as, how does it do that? It does it because it serves as a coenzyme during the activation of specific proteins that assist in blood coagulation. Again, the cascade of events that lead to coagulation, there is a coenzyme that triggers that process, and vitamin K serves as a coenzyme. And also for the activation of osteocalcin, it requires this coenzyme activity that vitamin K provides. So it works in both ways as a coenzyme. Now, how much vitamin K do we need to take on a day-to-day basis? So the adequate intake is for men, approximately 120 micrograms per day, and women, 90 micrograms per day. So again, the same rationale that we spoke before. Due to the lower amount of body fat men usually have, they require a little bit more because they don't store as much as women do. As again, as a fat-soluble vitamin, it will be stored in the adipose tissue, so that makes a difference in the adequate intake. But they're close, relatively close, and it's very easy, simple to acquire that. See, again, 120 micrograms per day for men and 90 micrograms per day for women. Now, if you look at the dietary sources of it, it's very easy to acquire vitamin K. So if you eat broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, lettuce, spinach, if you use canola or canola oil, or if you eat eggs, see, all of them provide pretty much, with the exception of canola oil and spinach and kale that has a lot more, but see, the other ones you can get way more than you need, even either a man or a woman. If you eat one of these foods on a regular basis, you probably get way more, or you surpass the daily allowance of vitamin K. So again, very rare that you're going to see symptoms of deficiency. But if that happens in those places, and usually, again, this deficiencies of vitamins nowadays, we only see in those places where people have extreme poverty, very limited supply of food. And it's not uncommon to see that in Canada, in North America in general, even though you have some pockets of poverty that you could see some issues here, but in general, it's not common. But if you see symptoms of deficiency, they include obviously impaired blood clotting, and possibly negative effects on bone health. Remember, vitamin K is important for blood clotting and also for mineralization and maturation of bone. So obviously, if you are deficient, those are the two symptoms that you will probably find in the case of deficiency. Toxicity. Again, there is no symptoms of toxicity that have been reported. So it's unlikely that you need to worry about eating too much vitamin K. All you need to do is make sure that you have a diet that contains all those different foods that I mentioned before, such as listed here in this table. And you will probably have more than you need, and you won't have to worry about being deficient of vitamin K. So with this, we finalized the fat-soluble vitamins, and we're going to move on now to the water-soluble ones. And there are two groups here that the diagram divides for us. So we have the vitamin C, that is a very well-known water-soluble vitamin. And we have the B complex. So the B complex can be divided in several different groups here. Today we are going to talk about vitamin C, but then we are going to go into the B complex and discuss one by one. So the B complex actually can be divided in three groups, the ones that we call energy releasing, hematopoietic. So energy releasing not because the vitamin provides energy, but because the vitamin participates in the process by which your body produces energy from carbohydrate, fat, and protein, for instance. So, but the vitamin itself is not an energy yielding molecule, but it participates in the process of energy production. So that's why there are six of them that are classified within the group of energy releasing. And there are the hematopoietic because they are important, they participate in the process of red blood cell production. So you have 4 of them. And then we have other because they participate in different processes in your body. We are going to discuss all of them, and we have 5 different vitamins that are classified within those. And you can see that they overlap. It's not that one group of one vitamin does one thing and doesn't participate in another process. They usually overlap because they do different things. But we are going to discuss the B complex later on. Today we are going to talk about vitamin C. So vitamin C is the generic descriptor for all compounds that exhibit a qualitative biological activity of ascorbic acid. Basically, when we talk about vitamin C, is ascorbic acid. It's a molecule that contains 6 carbons and derives from glucose. Actually, you're going to see that there is quite a bit of similarity between vitamin C and glucose. But humans cannot synthesize it because we lack an enzyme called gluconolactone oxidase, which is the last enzyme in the vitamin C synthetic pathway. So we can do a lot of things with glucose. We can modify the molecule of glucose, but we cannot make it into vitamin C because we don't have this crucial enzyme, gluconolactone oxidase, which is the last enzyme in the process of making vitamin C. So we need to get it from the diet because it's not produced, we cannot make it. And if you look here, the molecule, as you can see, that's what I said, that it resembles glucose. This is ascorbic acid on the left side, and this is the hydroascorbic acid on the right side. Okay, so they are very similar. The difference is that here you have a double bond, and here you have a single bond. So that's this small difference in the molecule that differentiates ascorbic acid from dehydroascorbic acid. And again, you can see that there is some similarity with glucose. For that reason, in plants can convert glucose into vitamin C, but humans cannot. So in foods, vitamin C is found mostly as ascorbic acid, but you can also find small amounts in the oxidized form or dehydroascorbic acid. So both of them are found in foods. Vitamin C is destroyed by heat, light, oxidation, and alkaline solutions. But it's stable in acidic solution. So vitamin C itself is an acid, so it's an ascorbic acid. So it is acidic by itself. So it can sustain or can support well or remain intact in an acidic environment. But if you put in an alkaline solution, it kind of degrades it. And also heat, light, and oxidation. So for practical reasons, citrus fruits are good sources of vitamin C as they are generally eaten raw. So what do I mean by this? When you have a lime or lemon or oranges or strawberries, these are very rich, the fruits that are rich in vitamin C, and you eat them raw, so you don't heat them up, you don't expose them to long to light, because they're usually, if you eat them intact, it's only when you cut the fruit and you eat, but you eat it right away. So there is not much that can destroy vitamin C. So the best, from a practical point of view, if you're going to get vitamin C, it's important to eat fruits or foods that you don't process them too much, because that prevents the vitamin C from being destroyed. So that's why citrus fruits are usually good sources of vitamin C. So about 70 to 90% is absorbed if the dietary intake of vitamin C is within 30 to 180 milligrams per day. So that's usually how much or the range of vitamin C that you can absorb from the diet on a day-to-day basis. And if you take in a lot more, absorption is reduced. So absorption is drastically reduced with higher intakes. For instance, only 16% is absorbed at high intakes if you take 12 grams per day. Because there is this idea that the more you take, the better. Again, this is another issue because your body is self-limiting. And what do I mean by this? If you take too much vitamin C, your body downregulates the absorption and limits how much is actually entering your body. So there is that opposing effect depending on the amount that you take. So 30 to 180 milligrams per day, you can absorb most of it. But if you go way beyond that, you absorb a lot less. And what ends up happening is that it goes out of your system. So you eliminate it. But because it's also water soluble, it ends up being eliminated with the water that comes out of your body. So what are the functions of vitamin C? It was originally associated with scurvy, and scurvy is a disease that manifests when the total body vitamin C pool falls below 300 milligrams and plasma concentrations drop below 0.2 milligrams per deciliter. So scurvy is probably the problem or the disease or the condition that led scientists to discover vitamin C, because it was basically in sailors long ago, like a couple century ago, or more than about 2 centuries ago, when they were going in expeditions, long-term expeditions, and they couldn't carry perishable foods with them, so they were limited in the supply of vitamin C, and they end up with scurvy, which is a very severe and limiting disease. We're going to discuss more the details about it. So vitamin C is usually associated with scurvy. Nowadays, it's almost rare, impossible to find, because people get vitamin C in many different ways. But again, it was long ago when people had limited supply of food, and it might still happen in places where people have very impoverished populations, or people that have very limited access to food. That might happen, but it's unlikely. In North America, again, I don't think we will ever see it. But scurvy is fatal if not treated. It's characterized by fatigue, hyperkeratotic hair follicles, especially in arms. So your arm the hair follicles becomes kind of, there's an excess of keratin, and it becomes rigid, kind of harsh. It's like a scale in your skin. Legs and buttocks. So it diminishes vascular wall strength and may lead to rupture of small blood vessels, hemorrhage, bruising, and red skin discolorations. So there is also impaired wound fracture healing and joint pain. And the reason for this is because all these symptoms, they arise from the fact that vitamin C is required for the synthesis of collagen, carnitine, tyrosine, and neurotransmitters. Remember, collagen is what confers your skin rigidity. It's elastic. There is some degree of elasticity, but there is also some degree of rigidity, because when you pull your skin, for instance, you can pull it. There is resistance. It's pretty rough. It's tough for you to break it. So that resistance, that rigidity that your skin has, is largely conferred to by collagen. So if you cannot make collagen, then your skin becomes easily bruised. It can also, your blood vessels can easily break. So there is a lot of everything that requires there's some degree of rigidity in a structure will be affected, including bones. So that's why you have all these fractures, wound healing problems, joint pain, hemorrhage, bruising. So these are all associated with the inability of your body to produce collagen. But there is also carnitine, which is important for metabolism of fat in your muscles. So if you don't have carnitine, you can't really properly oxidize fat. So that limits your energy production. So that is also associated with fatigue. It limits your production of tyrosine and neurotransmitters. So you can also, it becomes difficult for you to actually concentrate and have proper function of your nervous system, because you cannot produce the neurotransmitters that actually allow the communication between different neurons or different parts of your nervous system. So these are all associated with the lack of vitamin C. And again, scurvy is the classical condition that kind of encompasses all these problems together. So what are the primary functions again of vitamin C? So it's an antioxidant in extracellular fluids and lungs. Remember, vitamin E is an antioxidant in cell membranes because it's a fat-soluble vitamin. But vitamin C, it's water-soluble. So what it does is it works also as an antioxidant in the aqueous solution environment of your body. It can be in your blood, can be in the interstitial fluid, any place where you have water, or it's basically, it contains a large amount of water. The presence of vitamin C protects those environments because it works as an antioxidant. It regenerates oxidized vitamin E. In other words, when vitamin E becomes oxidized, vitamin C helps and it allows vitamin E to be regenerated so it can go back and do its function in the lipid-soluble environment. As we said before, it assists with collagen synthesis. So without collagen, you can't really make anything function properly in your body. It also enhances immune function because the cells that make up your immune system also require vitamin C for them to be properly maintained. It also enhances iron absorption. Remember, because of the acidity of vitamin C, it can also facilitate absorption of iron in your gut, and also the transport of iron in your body, and assists in the synthesis of hormones, neurotransmitters, and DNA. So I think that shows all these different features of functions of vitamin C, shows how important it is for normal physiological function. What's the recommended intake? For men is approximately 90 milligrams per day, and women approximately 75. And here there's nothing, the difference has nothing to do with fat, because this is a water-soluble vitamin. The difference here is because the amount of blood that men and women have is slightly, men have a little bit more blood than women. And because of that, you have a higher water compartment. And for that, you require a little bit more vitamin C for men than women. There's nothing to do with fat now, or the fat, or being fat stored in fat, because it's not. It's present in the fluids of your body. So smokers are recommended 35 milligrams more per day than the normal recommendation. In other words, if you're a man and you're a smoker, you should take 125 milligrams per day, and if you're a woman, 110 milligrams per day, if you smoke, obviously. And the upper limit is set approximately 2,000 milligrams per day. More than that can be detrimental, so there is an upper limit. But I have to say, I've seen people take a lot more than that, and we normally don't see much of an issue here. But the upper limit, the official upper limit for it, is 2,000 or 2 grams per day. Symptoms of deficiency: scurvy, as I mentioned before, and that encompasses a lot of other symptoms. Bone pain is one of them, fractures, depression, anemia. So there is a whole bunch of symptoms that can be fatal if not treated. Again, not common nowadays, unless you're in a very impoverished area, in a place where you have very limited supply of food. You might see it, but most places in North America, you don't get it. Symptoms of toxicity: it can cause nausea and diarrhea, nosebleeds, increased oxidative damage, increased formation of kidney stones in people with kidney disease. So there is, again, vitamin C is an antioxidant, but can be a pro-oxidant, and that's why it can also cause damage, nausea and diarrhea, depending on the amount. When it has too much vitamin C, it works the reverse. Instead of helping, it becomes detrimental. So these are the typical symptoms of toxicity for vitamin C. Again, not common, unlikely to see it, because I've seen people take quite a bit of vitamin C because they think it's the more the better, and very rarely, or I've never seen anyone show symptoms of toxicity. But it's been reported in books, in textbooks, and this is a concern that we should keep in mind. Dietary sources: again, citrus fruits and juices. So apple, for instance, you get 10 to 30 milligrams per 100 grams of fruit. Grapefruit, 40 milligrams per 100 grams. Guava, 300 milligrams. Orange and lemon, 50. Strawberries, 40 to 90 milligrams per 100. But you also get it. So these are citrus fruits that we usually consume raw. But you can also get from broccoli, 90 to 150. Kale, 120 to 180. Spinach and green peppers. So, as you can see here, it's abundantly present in plant fruit. We don't see much and this is probably the single vitamin, the only vitamin that we don't usually find in significant amounts or in abundance in animal products. Animals also have vitamin C in them, but usually they are not referred to as sources of vitamin C. The main sources are usually plants. So that's why usually the recommendation is that you go more with citrus fruits, because when you eat, for instance, animal products, you tend to heat them up, or you tend to use processes that might destroy vitamin C. And because you don't have a lot to begin with, a little bit of degradation may eliminate pretty much what you have there. So plant foods or citrus fruits and some the vegetables are the best sources of vitamin C. And as you can see here, unlikely you're gonna be deficient if you include these foods in your diet. Okay, with that, we stop here today. So we are going to start with the B complex next class. And for now, we completed the fat-soluble vitamins, and we did the first water-soluble vitamin C. Next will be the B complex. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.